For this next feather, I'm going to show you how to combine techniques and how to add frills to the bottom of the feather to give it that really feathery look. For the colors in this feather, I'm using warm tones from the Classics Prima palette. I've got the red, orange, yellow, and I'm going to use a bit of brown as well. The shape of the feather on this one is a little different, where the stem only comes halfway up through the feather, allowing us to create a really different look. I've also left a little white space at the very top of my stem that I'll paint in later to really give it some visual appeal. Of course, we'll start by wetting the feather using the technique of using a little too much water and then mopping it out. I'm starting here with some intense red, fully loading my brush and using that first technique of just letting the paint flow and letting my brush just kind of dance around. I'm leaving some white space so that I can come back in with other colors to add to the red. Here I'm going to start adding some intense orange into my red and into some of the white space. Remember to monitor the amount of liquid that's on your brush. You can always tap it off onto your paper towel to make sure that you don't get any puddles happening on your paper. Using the dot technique, I'm now adding little bits of yellow, intense yellow, into the mix. So I'm coming around that middle section and just kind of dotting it in, just like when we created the bursts of color. And I'll also put some on the outer edges. Here I'm going to switch down to a smaller brush so that I can have a little more control over the amount of liquid that goes onto my feather painting. I'm going into the brown and mixing up an intense color. It's still wet, but also very intense. I'm just going to drop it around the very top of the feather and let it flow right into that red paint. I'll also put some around the base. Using the same small brush, once I complete with the brown, I'll rinse the brush off and start to create the frills on the bottom of the feather. To do this, you just grab the paint that's still wet at the base of the feather and pull it out into dry paper in small strokes. Your brush should be just slightly wet when you do this process. To add these contrasting colors here at the bottom, I'm just using that dot technique and just adding a little extra oomph and color at the base. I let the feather dry, and now I'm going to paint in that middle section at the top of the stem. In this small section, you don't have to wet it first. You can just go in with straight paint. So I'm just grabbing some yellow. I'm not using a whole lot of water, but it's still wet. Once I put in the yellow, then I'll grab a little orange and tap it right into the bottom. And I'll also add just a little tiny touch of red. And here I'm just using that dot technique where I'm just simply letting my brush kind of dot the paper just to infuse the colors together. And keep in mind also that the entire process, even though we didn't wet the paper first, because we used wet paint, the yellow was still wet when I added the orange and the red so that everything will flow together. I hope you enjoyed creating this fire and frills feather with me, and I can't wait to see your paintings.